welcome. We're delighted to have you here. I'm Matt Jacobs. I'm the director of the Bob Graham Center for Public Service. For those of you who are not familiar with the Graham Center, we're founded in 2006 by former Florida governor, he's UFL as well, former Florida governor and Florida Senator Bob Graham. We are broadly engaged with the themes of civic engagement, public service, public leadership, and effective public policy implementation. And we do that across a lot of different disciplines in a lot of different ways. One of those ways is through our professional development opportunities, both through internships that we work with and support students on in Tallahassee and DC, here in Gainesville, and in some other areas as well, but also through these professional development speaker series, one of which we have today with a distinguished UF alum, Jamal Sowell. I'm not going to do an elaborate introduction of Jamal because that's part of the point of the talk, is for him to walk you through his career path and his key decision moments and some things like that that led him to be where he is today. I will note a couple of things. First of all, he's former UF student body president, former special assistant to former UF president Bernie Matchin. It was actually in that context that he met my predecessor here at the Graham Center, former UF provost David Colburn. Getting Jamal here to do this talk has actually been a 5-year process. He might not even remember the origin point of that process, which was an email exchange that he had with David Colburn when David was director of the center back in 2018 that got forwarded to me when I became director in February 2019. And we actually started having some communications at that time. Jamal was head of Enterprise Florida. He'll explain some about what that was. Then, unfortunately, David Colburn passed away in September of 2019. Then we had a pandemic hit. And so this is an event literally 5 years in the making to get us here. So it's really my pleasure to have Jamal Sowell here today. I think that we're in for a real great talk here. Somebody who's, as I said, a distinguished UF alum. We're delighted to have you. Jamal, thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Jamal Sowell. Pretty much I'll talk for about 20 minutes and I'll open up the floor for questions. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce my wife, Karen, is here and everything. Karen's a high school teacher. And Karen went to Alcorn State University in Mississippi for undergrad and then for grad school. And also Marion Hoffman, who's from Gainesville High School here, and went to college at Tulane, University of Texas, but worked in UF for years. I met Marion years ago when I was a college student, and she has been amazing to work with. She helped lead government relations at UF. Then I brought her along with me to the state of Florida in my role as Secretary of Commerce. And now she's with my company, Indelible, and I'll talk about that in a second. But before we start, just think about where you want to be in 10 to 20 years. I know as a freshman, when I came in the summer of 2000, I had no idea. I may have had something, I thought about it, but I didn't necessarily know how I would get there. I'll tell you about my background, what I did, and how I got to where I was able to go through. But also the most important thing was asking for help. So Dr. Jacobs mentioned Dr. David Colburn. I walked to his office freshman year and said, I'm Jamal Sowell. Tell me about what you do. That was it. And I know it sounds pretty strange for some, but years later, when I was doing my president trustee, I was able to work with them. And administrators appreciate the boldness and also the professionalism of students who may not necessarily know what they want to do, but they're still learning. So my major was in religion. I love the topic of faith. Whether it was somebody from the Middle East, somebody from the backwoods of Georgia, whether it was somebody from Mississippi, or even the Southeast Asian islands. For me, the topic of faith was exciting to me because it allowed me to understand how people thought, allowed me to understand cultures and backgrounds. Perfect example. I'm not Jewish, but I learned some Hebrew. I did a semester in Israel, and then I would take classes about the languages and cultures, and that really catapulted me to a different realm. And for me, that's really what my college experience was about. So essentially, my parents are from the backwoods of Florida. It's about an hour north of here called Jasper, Florida. And then my parents met in college at Florida A&M University. And my mom is from Lake County, Florida. So they went to FAMU, and for them, because of their age, they didn't have the chance to go to integrated schools. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. So essentially, my parents graduated high school in 1964. Are we good? Yep, basically like in 1964. So they ended with the FAMU, then my dad did Vietnam. And then from there, he kind of lived around the world because he wanted to see the world. Because in a small city, people who left did very well. He just had a vision of seeing the world and really becoming a Renaissance man. So that's what I wanted to do. So when I got to UF in the summer of 2000, I said, well, how can I push myself to become better? How can I push myself to meet other people? So my freshman year, I joined the Asian Student Union, the Hispanic Student Association, and different groups. And people would ask me like, oh, this is interesting. You know, why are you here? I joined the Jewish Student Union. And they will say, are you an Ethiopian Jew? Right. No, I'm just here to learn. And for me, doing that made so many friends who I now do business with today. Because of that, I say this thing that I've never, every job I've ever applied to, I never got, which means I must be a pretty bad interview. But every job I got, I never applied because of a friendship or somebody I met freshman, sophomore, junior year. Yes, it was uncomfortable to be in a room and people may wondering, why is he here? Why is he at our meeting? But to me, that pushed me to really want to learn about different cultures, different backgrounds. My brothers are Christian ministers, and my mom raised us to do that. But I wanted to really expand my horizons just to learn about different people. So majoring in religion taught me everything about whether it was Judaism, whether it was about Islam, whether it was about the LDS church. And for me, that really expanded my mind to want to learn more. So where I was raised in Orlando was called Pine Hills, pretty much predominantly West Indian, Caribbean from the islands. And several of my best friends were Haitian. They spoke Haitian Creole. And there's a term, a proverb in Haitian Creole. It says, "Piti piti zoiseau péniche," means little by little, the bird builds its nest. But what I did at UF, I started doing little things every single year that was different. Little things that were not the norm for a Black student coming on campus. But for me, by the time I became a senior, I said, well, I want to run for student body president. And some students were like, no, you can't do that. You're not in the Greek system. You'll never win. This won't happen. This will happen when people stay 8, 9 years to be student body president. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I would like to do it. And people would do that, stay 8, 9 years to be student body president. That's their prerogative. Nothing wrong with that. That just was not going to be my path. So I was on preview staff. I was an RA, involved on every facet of campus. And then from there, I became student body president, helped organizations, and I ran for student body president. But that was really a small piece of what I did. I was really engaged with students. I like going to Charlington. I like going to events. I like interacting with people because that showed me things I had to learn, things I may not have learned from my background, things that I may have been deficient in, and things that I was deficient in. And for me, that pushed me to become even better. Perfect example. One day, freshman year, I walked into the Hillel. Again, I'm not Jewish, and I asked the question, can I speak to the director? A guy named Keith Dvorchin, who now a mentor of mine. And I was just asking questions about his background. And he just probably thought it was pretty strange for me, but very intriguing. Now he's a good friend. But that taught me so much about learning about what I was deficient in, but also what I could become. So essentially, when I started UF, I was very timid, very shy. Really wasn't about public speaking. Really wasn't about doing anything out of my spectrum because in high school, I was very shy. Really didn't, I did a little bit, but not enough to be seen, not enough to be remembered because I was a bit timid. So I didn't want to make that same mistake in college. So I did everything. And when I tell you, just name it, I was there, joined organizations, asked questions, because I didn't want to have a regret. Because in high school, I had regrets. Because of the fact that I just didn't want to be made fun of. I didn't want to stand out, to be different. But I realized those who stand out are the ones who make history. Those who are different are the ones who make history. Those who are bold in their belief. Whatever it is, even though people may not agree with you, they make history. If you want to just be like everybody else, that is fine, but people will not remember you. And that goes back to the picture on the flyer, the Gator suit. People would say, Jamal, why are you wearing that stupid suit? You look like an idiot. I'm like, but till this day, you're still talking about it. So it must have been something, because you're not talking about anybody else who was at that football game except the guy in the Gator suit. I've got job offers from that suit. They would say, if you're bold enough to work at an FSU game, in the hot sun, who is this guy? And to me, UF gave me that boldness to stand out against all odds. Again, back to my time, 2002, 2003, 2004. When I said I wanted to be somebody proud, they said, you can't do that. You're not in the Greek system. This is planned years in advance. This is just not something that happens. I said, no, my major wasn't in math. My major was in miracles. It was in religion. So for me, I knew I had what it took. And for you all who are trying to decide what to do in your career, take the chance now, because that put me on a different trajectory than anybody else or anything that I thought I would have done. In college, if you messed up, oh well. If you have a business that doesn't work out, oh well. You can say, hey, I was young and stupid. I was still learning. If you have an idea that you want to implement, do it now. If you look at Facebook, started in a college dorm, you look at companies, it's okay to mess up now because the stakes are very low. Many of you all probably are not married, don't have kids. So when you can do it on your own, stay on a friend's couch for a month or a year in DC or overseas, do it now when the stakes are very low, because you want to learn from those mistakes. Because when you're 30 and you try that, that's a bit different. Because now you may have kids, now people are counting you. Now you have a credit score. So, so all of that makes a difference. So me pushing myself, becoming better, but learning public speaking. I did not like public speaking. I would get up in the student government Senate meetings, blogs would say, he's a horrible public speaker, but I kept getting better. I know to do what I wanted to do, I had to keep pushing myself, even when it was uncomfortable. So when I got to the Marine Corps, I became better. When I then eventually became Secretary of Commerce, I was speaking on TV, became better because I pushed myself when the stakes were very low. I know in college, everybody feels like it's so important, but please do things that are out the norm. Because I had the confidence to run for somebody president, win by a landslide, I said, well, if I can do that, I can go to grad school in Massachusetts. I didn't know anybody, and it was kind of lonely at first, but that pushed me to become better. It pushed me to make friends everywhere I went. Think about it, you go from Gainesville to Amherst, Massachusetts, when it's snowing from November to April. It was rough. But because of that, I became better. I then matured myself. From there, I said, well, if I can do that at UF in Massachusetts, I can join the Marine Corps. And this is 2006. During those 6, the awards in Iraq and Afghanistan, very low approval ratings because of what's going on in the world and people were mad at it. But I didn't want to miss my chance in history. I did not want my time at UF to be my pinnacle. Who here knows somebody who was an all-star in high school and they got a continuity anyway? But you will probably know 1 or 2 people. And that's how it goes in life. I didn't want to have people say, well, he was great in college, but what is he doing now? Okay. And I didn't want my past success to define my future. So I kept pushing myself to become better, pushing myself to take internships and other programs and even leadership development programs. Because I didn't want to say, oh, he was somebody president, but that's all he did. And he never did anything else of that significance. So whatever it is that you're doing now, whether it's your major, whether it's on campus, just push yourself to do something different. And how I did that is that I would read biographies. I love biographies. That's all I read. I would say, well, how did Einstein get here? How did FDR get here? How did Madeleine Albright get to where she is? How did these world-known leaders get to where they are? So once you see that, say, oh, maybe I need to go somewhere else for grad school to broaden my network. Maybe I need to go somewhere else for med school or law school. Maybe I need to do the Peace Corps to expand my horizon, because you can always bring that home. I would have so many peers who would go to UF for, 2, 3, 4 degrees. I'm a quadruple Gator. I'm like, I'm not knocking that, but maybe it's showing that you are afraid to leave. Maybe it's showing that you don't want to necessarily go outside because you're comfortable in Gainesville or comfortable in Florida. So that's why I was very adamant about all my degrees going somewhere else. And I wanted to make sure I expanded my network, but also wanted to make sure that I didn't get comfortable. Because it's easy to say, hey, I'm the big dog here because everybody knows me. But when I went to Massachusetts, nobody cared. When I went to California, nobody cared. When I went to Israel, nobody cared. They would just ask me, they would ask me a question, and I would say, "Ani lo medabet Hebrew," which means I don't speak Hebrew. But then I would make a friend and make friends, and They just wanted somebody who would interact with them, who was humble, who was willing to learn and ask questions. And to me, when you move, you're forced to do that. Imagine if you stayed at home after high school and you're still dealing with your friends and the same crowds. It's easy to say I was big in this circle, but if you are truly impressive and ambitious and have a vision to change the world, you should be able to do that anywhere. It shouldn't just be in one environment that you're comfortable in, because it's easy to be comfortable and do it well in that one setting. So for me, everywhere I went, I made friends. I tried to go somewhere different. I lived in California, lived in Arizona and Texas. It was just me. I was not married at the time, so I had to make friends. I had to meet people. And at times it was lonely because you're there at a meeting and nobody's talking to you. You're there at an event and nobody's talking to you. But I had to understand I'm here for a reason, and my reason is to make a connection to where I live at this specific time. So going to grad school in Massachusetts, my mother died, and I was super sad because I was gone from home and everything. She passed, and I went back to grad school, worked at a school called Amherst College, and I interned at Texas A&M, whole different experience. But then having her die really made me want to really just do even more to make her proud one day. So then in the Marine Corps, I then went from pretty much grad school to Paris Island, South Carolina, boot camp. And then from there, I was stationed in Virginia, DC, the Quantico area, California, then overseas in Afghanistan. And going overseas really broadened my perspective, because from an American perspective, I had a certain perspective. But when I was over there, I'm like, oh, it's not as black and white as I may have thought. There's a lot of gray wherever you go. When you see something from a book versus something that you read and now see in person, it really expanded my horizon to see things in Afghanistan, to see things in Israel, to see things when I was traveling to Germany and Europe. It was phenomenal. And I knew that I could bring that back home one day. I have so many friends who would go to UF, grad school, law school, and go back home because they felt like they didn't want to miss anything in Florida. But Florida is a transient state. So with Dr. Coburn, he wrote a book and several books about the Florida landscape and political culture. Only about 30 to 35% of the state is from Florida. Everybody else is a transient. Raise your hand if you were born in Florida. See, that's maybe half the room and everything. So you go to Georgia, Alabama, the majority of the room. Perfect example. The last 3 out of the 4 governors in the state of Florida were not born in the state of Florida. Not born in the state of Florida, just moved here and for other reasons, and they became governor. In Texas, in Mississippi, you can't even get on the ballot unless you're a 6th generation native, went to certain schools, certain country clubs, certain groups. But in Florida, none of that matters. Somebody can come here with a vision, wanting to start a business, wanting to be somebody, and they don't have to have the right last name. They don't have to have the right background. Because Florida is such a transient state, so none of that really matters in the same way that it may in other states. So I think that we are truly a model for people who want to come here, be somebody and do something, not have to be in the country club, not have to go to the right schools, not have to be in the right circles. And that's really what my experience at UF taught me. So from going to the Marine Corps, I came back here to work for the President Bernie Matson. He started the MFOS program. And I was his first student body president because he knew I wanted to work in academia and higher ed administration. I then worked here from the school from 11 to 14 as a special assistant to the president. So I kind of had 2 different UF experiences. Being a student is different than working for the school. Working for the school, you see it from a different perspective, but also you see ambitious students who are now going to be the future. But anytime a student reaches out to me, I'm very accessible. Hey, let's get up. I met with like a student the other day who just added me on LinkedIn. Hey, can we talk? I'm fine. I'm all about that because think about it. I know at times when you're at UF and you travel, you may think, oh, I didn't go to Harvard or Yale. Trust me, you're just as good. Because when I went to Massachusetts, I realized, wow, I have what it takes to interact and intellectually compete against those from Harvard, Yale, and those schools in the Northeast. And when I saw that, I would say, I'm glad that I moved because I had to challenge myself to see that. So UF, you are the best. Top 5%. I know it may not feel like it at this moment, but when you go to different cities around the state and places, people are going to be like, wow, you're interacting with me. You're coming here to talk to me because they see you as special. I know it may be hard to view it in the season of your life, but they see you as unique and special because it's so hard to get into this school now. And you have to use that to your advantage for internships, for programs, but also to lead. Because when I was applying to grad school, I didn't pay any for grad school at all. I thought, wow, you're coming to UF. But I had to leave to understand that. And then for law school, I was on the GI Bill. But I think that for me, I kept wanting to push myself. So in 14, President Matson was about to retire and President Fox was about to come in. I could have stayed, but I felt like I'm getting too comfortable. I felt like, Gainesville is nice, it's simple. I could move up in the administration, but I realized that I couldn't fulfill my full potential if I stayed in Gainesville. Nothing wrong with that, but I know for me, wanting to see the world, I knew I needed to push myself to become better to get to the next level. Whatever that level was, and I didn't know what it was, I had to push myself. So I said, I don't want to stay here. I could have gone to law school at UF or FSU, but I went to Indiana University Bloomington, middle of America, Midwest and everything, but made some friends there, took classes, language class and everything. And it was, who here speaks a foreign language? Tell me what you speak. Spanish. Yeah, amazing. Bengali, yes, amazing. Urdu, yeah, India, yeah, Urdu, India, Pakistan, yep, got that. How about you? Spanish, amazing. Russian, das vidanya, spasiba. Hindi, yes. Amazing, okay. Anybody else? Bon, German, yes, it's my brother was German. Loved, actually, and he will stay here. So essentially, the reason why I asked that is because I started to take foreign language classes. I put classes over in Indiana because they have a big foreign language program, which I had no idea about until I got there. And for me, even though I don't speak them very well, I knew in order to get out of my comfort zone, I had to learn different cultures and backgrounds. Naturally, it was natural for me to hang around guys who may have looked like me, who have thought like me, played sports and worked out. But to now be in an environment where your friends aren't like that, it will grow you. I had to look at my friends. Okay, if all of my friends look like me, there's a problem. I need to expand my network. I need to make friends. And that's why I joined the GSU. That's why I joined HSA. That's why I joined ASU. Because I was going through my Rolodex. All of my friends freshman year, they either look like me or think like me. And that's a problem. That's why in my career, I was able to eventually come back to Fort out of law school. And then from there, I was the chief of staff at Port Tampa Bay, the largest land port in the state. And from there, I became Florida Secretary of Commerce at 36 years old. And what that was the culmination of all my experiences, because I pushed myself to live overseas. People would say, like, wow, this is interesting, because I wasn't expecting, you to have that background that you do. And I think that for me, I love to defy expectations. But it came because I pushed myself, wanting to get better, wanting to improve, wanting to make sure that my past success did not define my future. It was a good stepping stone. It was cool what I did here, but I don't want to be labeled as the UF guy or seen as the person who just does UF things. So now I help run a company called Indelible. We're a national management consulting firm. We work with KPMG, McKinsey, EY. What we do specifically is help companies fix issues, whether it's internal audit, risk compliance, risk management, because somebody may say, hey, I just started my job and I need you to look at my finances. I need you to look at my records to make sure that we are compliant with federal standards, state standards, for county governments, or maybe county standards. And that's really my passion, because that allows me to use my skills from higher ed, my skills from sport, my skills from overseas and the military and law school, just name it, to now do it to the private sector. So I love higher ed, but now I get to help universities and other entities grow and fix issues that they may not think about when it comes to their internal processes and the procedures. So as we work with McKinsey, as we work with KPMG and others, EY, it's been a learning experience for me, but also working with great people means a lot. So before I open up for questions, I have certain things that I always say. Number one, watch how you treat people. People may not remember what you said, but they'll remember how you treated them. And I think that's so important, because in school, college is a constant interview. There's people who try to interview with me now. I'm like, I remember in college. Not saying that you'll necessarily that will always follow them, but at the same time, if you have two people And like, hey, in college, they may not have had the skills, but they were respectful, they were on point, they were on time, they were trustworthy, they had integrity. That makes a difference years later. I would pick a person who may be from a 1 to a 10, a 7 with skill set, but 10 with integrity, because I know they won't have any drama, they won't have any scandal. That's the biggest thing in the professional setting that we're in. I met Marion when I was 19, 20 years old. She was always professional, always positive. And because of that, I hired her years later because she was amazing to work with, but because she set a positive tone, was not toxic, wanted to help people, wanted to empower people. And to me, that means everything. So as you think about your careers, think number one, always treat people with respect. Just every single interaction. Number two is don't have drama. When I say drama, people have personalities, but when you have personal drama, that distracts from the mission. So when somebody is drunk at an event, when somebody gets arrested, when somebody has that, it distracts from the mission. So obviously life happens, but just try to stay out of drama because you want to make it a focus on the mission and your skill set as you work with different corporations, as you work with different companies. That is number two. Number three is watch out for the well-beings of the lowest person on the totem pole. We learned that in the Marine Corps. The person who ate first was not the general. It was the person who was 17, 18 years old who was a private first class. They were the ones on the front line. So make sure that they have a voice, make sure that they're empowered, make sure that they're helped. And that is the biggest thing. And if you do that, you will see everything fall in line. Lastly, set the example. The example has to be set by you as the leader. If you're late, you can't ask anybody else to be on time. If you're not responding to emails, you can't ask anybody else to respond to emails. If you're not setting a positive culture, it's hard to do that for others. And people may not say it, but they see it. They see it every day. You're the president of HSA or whatever group it is. You're president of ASU, and you're not coming on time for meetings. You're not sending emails. You can't expect anybody else to have that same tone. So you set the example. Setting the example means you're being watched every time. It just is what it is. I know it could be stressful for some, but setting the example in everything that you do is going to be the key. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions. I know I don't want to take up your class time to make good grades, but I do want to be of assistance to you. In the future, if you have LinkedIn or Twitter for anything about grad school and other programs, please reach out and expand your horizon. Don't feel like you have to stay in the state of Florida because you can always come back to bring that knowledge home. So, several reasons. My grandfather was in World War II. Father wasn't in Vietnam, brother was in Iraq. That was probably the number one reason. Number two was that I joined in 05, 06, and I had like a lot of friends who would, and I've written about this in the past, who would say, I'm for the troops. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and support the troops. I'm like, well, you're 22, you're in shape, don't have kids. How come you don't join? Oh, no, I have grad school, I have all the programs. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Like, you're the main one saying to support the troops and to do this, and you're in the gym 5 times a week, super buff and swole. So for me, I did not want to be one of those who say, I wish I would have. I wish I could have. Someone who is on the call now, Yael Diamond. I saw her on the call earlier. Why Diamond? Amazing. After UF, join the service. And for me, and probably for her too, she'd probably say, an amazing decision because you can always come back home, but that knowledge to be a world citizen, to serve a cause greater than yours, to me makes one of the biggest differences. Also, I got Brian Ray, who is here on the screen. Same thing. He was a chaplain. There's so many jobs you can do in the military, but that's a regret that my friends say that they wish that they would have done. They wish they would have done something different. And again, it just doesn't have to be the military. It can be Peace Corps. It can be a Fulbright scholar. Peace Corps, you're 2 years overseas in a country that you may not feel comfortable, but that will push you to become better. So when you go for opportunities, you will stand out above the rest. I saw so many of my peers who I thought was impressive, but they just went home and went to grad school and law school, and it wasn't bad, but I know I did not want a path that was simple. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to become better, and I knew that leaving the military was not only family tradition, it was me pushing myself to become better, to do things that I thought that I couldn't do. And it pretty much made me a better leader, made me a better person, and now a better husband.
Jamal, one question. The hand raised, I think it's gas. Yeah. You can hear us. Yeah, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Can anyone hear me, see me?
Yes, yep, the whole crowd can hear you now.
All right, how's it going? I wanted to ask you a bit about your time with the Pat Tillman Scholarship and what that meant to you, what you learned from that experience, and would you recommend it going forward for people potentially coming out of those shoes?
Yes, so basically, Pat Tillman, for those who may not know because of your age and everything, so in 2004, he had 2004, yeah, also a great question. 2004, Pat Tillman was a former NFL player, went to war. He left the NFL to go to war, and then he died. He was shot and killed, and there was a lot of national press around that because of the issue with the federal government and everything with his death. But I became a Pat Tillman Scholar, and essentially it's almost veterans see it as the Rhodes Scholarship for veterans, because for veterans, you have to either be a veteran or a spouse of a veteran. So there's a lot of spouses of veterans who were killed who applied to be Pat Tillman Scholars. And essentially, it's a network of high achieving people who care about the country. And it's not political at all. If you Google the website, you'll see all types of backgrounds, all types of ethnicities, all types of orientations. And that's the point, because it shows here's the best advisors of Americans. But also, it's very competitive. So you apply either when you're in the military, when you get out to apply for grad school, college, even AA degrees. But not everybody wants to go to college. Some people may want to get a trade. But being a Pat Tillman Scholar gives you the support and funding to then do that outside of certain things like the GI Bill or the traditional scholarships. So that was pretty much a major honor for me, was to be a Pat Tillman Scholar. But again, that goes back to me pushing myself to become better. I applied and hey, had they said no, I would have tried again. But for me, I had to become better because I know on campus, you'll have people like, well, I did this freshman year, but that means nothing to junior senior year. Like, well, I was in this organization or this fraternity. I'm like, that means nothing when you college because everybody's in something. So to me, constantly becoming better, but also learning how to deal with stress, learning how to deal with controversy is really a skill that takes time.
Sounds like you never got any job you interviewed for and never interviewed for any job you got. So how did you go about getting those jobs?
So essentially, again, if you read my background, it can't fit in a box. It can't fit neatly in a box and everything. So what I would do, I would just interview, but I would stay in touch with the people I interviewed. Perfect example, I interviewed to be the chief of staff to Jeremy Liu, one of the top 10 world's biggest venture capitalists. Didn't get the job, but I got an hour with him one-on-one. Until this day, we still stay in touch. So it was a benefit that I didn't get the job, even though I wasn't chosen, I still got to have that FaceTime with him, learn about the VC world through the products I did to learn about the process before I interviewed. So to me, that opened other doors to meet people, even though I didn't get the job. So essentially, when people would hear, Jamal with law school, a mentor of mine said, hey, how about you come to work for me? That was it, because I asked for mentorships, for mentors freshman year of college. And they got to know me, my character, my work ethic for years. So they said, well, let me teach you this industry. And I know you'll be fine because you're going to put forth the work that it takes to be successful. So please ask for mentors, ask to speak to the Bob Graham Center Advisory Board, the board of directors. They want students to reach out to them. The students usually don't do that. So having those mentors can open doors for you for the future as you get to bring value to them because of your skill, because of your intellect, because of your background. And then they may ask you to work for them one day. That's kind of how it was for me.
How did you navigate living overseas for the language barrier?
So what I would do, I would try to learn the basics, like in Hebrew, knife is boss leg. Just the food, so it's the basics. But usually there was somebody who would hear me like, oh, okay, he's American. So the most time there was somebody who was being help and assist. but I was still very intrigued about learning about the culture and everything. So I was still trying to work on my language skills. But I think that the language barrier, you have to ask for help, but also, you necessarily can't, you're in a different country, but at least knowing enough to where, you can say my name is, or say that, can I have help? So really, as you do that, it'll make you more intrigued with learning about a language, culture, and their own nuances in their language. Because for someone who speaks Arabic in Egypt is different than Arabic in Africa. Totally different, like totally different. Like, yes, it sounds the same to us as Americans, but totally different. And almost like Catalan in Spanish, very, very different. So, but going overseas taught me that the differences between a person from Afghanistan, person from Iraq, totally different. And I had no idea from the American perspective.
Speaking on that international question, so you said that traveling abroad really broadened your horizon. And I guess can you elaborate more about what it broadened? Because if you're used to growing up in like a small town in Florida, like how did it, you often mentioned that not everything is black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray. Can you just elaborate more on that?
Where were you from?
Miami.
Okay, what's your high school?
Oh, it's down south, Miami Core.
The core part, yes, I know very well. I was on preview staff, so I had to learn all the high schools in Florida. That's but it was fun. So essentially, it broadened my horizon to understand that what I was raised as a Southern conservative Black male was not the same, even Christianity in the Middle East. It was not the same that I may have thought about. It's just different because the culture, not in capitalism over there, so it's just different. So it taught me that what I was accustomed to here was not necessarily the norm in Israel, was not necessarily the norm in Africa, not the norm when I was in Kyrgyzstan. So I think the government structure, the beliefs that we have here, what we do in America, is not necessarily the norm everywhere, even though it may be the same name, same ideology up top. Perfect example. When I was in the Marine Corps, we had to do classes about cultures. And perfect example, those who are Iranian and from Afghanistan, they are not Arab. And they will tell you they're not Arab. But from America, you think like Middle East, is it all the same, right? They're like, no, we don't speak the same language. I'm like, wow, Pashto and all those things and everything. But it taught me that to see things from another perspective, but also to learn their culture, to learn their history. And it showed me that I had a lot to learn. But also it showed me that if you come being humble with compassion and understanding someone's path and plight, that makes you better as a leader. So when you come back home to go to Miami one day to run for mayor, you come back home to run for Congress, you come wherever you go to, you'll have those skill sets to, hey, here's how I can improve my community in Brandon, Florida, so I can improve what I see as a lack. Questions?
Yes, I'm very interested in this corp as well, and I would love to get a little bit of an insight on your advice on how to, I guess, build your networks with institutions like that from a student who's in undergrad right now.
So I say one is work on your GPA. I wish I would have did that more. All my stuff at UF, a lot that I did was qualitative. Student government is qualitative. A GPA is quantitative. When I applied to Harvard and Yale, they're like, you being president was cool, but you don't have a 4.0. That little 3.1, 3.2 that you got, that's not going to cut it. And they said, no. But that's just how it is, because they're focused on quantitative. So please focus on your GPA. That is what they see on a Peace Corps resume. They say, yeah, he did all these good things. But having that 3.5, 3.6, even if you have to stay extra semester, extra summer, having that GPA is the quantitative factor that schools can look at, that Peace Corps can look at, that Fulbright. That, for those who, I think we may have a Rhodes Scholar in here. I didn't have a GPA to be a Rhodes Scholar, but to be a Rhodes Scholar, you have to have a 3.8, 3.9 and above. But that opens so many doors. I had a buddy who was a Rhodes Scholar. He was so impressive as a Rhodes Scholar, he didn't even have to apply to law school at Harvard. Just got it because he was a Rhodes Scholar. Again, but those focus off of GPA. You can justify a test score if it's not the best, but that GPA shows how hard you work in college, how much time you spent. And for me, I know I had a great time with involvement, but I wish I would have focused on my GPA more. If that can take you to different places that your resume can't, because they see that hard GPA number on paper. So as you go to Peace Corps, do it, everything, but it's amazing. I think everybody here should, expand their writing, do something different. And come back home, then when you go back home to your home city, people will be so amazed that you wanted to come back home to make it better.
At what point in your career did like the things that you did in college not really matter in terms of like what you want to do in the future?
Really, it was more so leaving. When I went to Massachusetts, nobody cared that I was student body president trustee. They could care less. When I went to the Marine Corps boot camp, they could care less about that. It meant nothing to them. But it humbled me because imagine had I just gone back home, like, oh, I did this in Gainesville. People want genuine interaction. They want people who are going to help them, but also people who are going to not show that they have a degree. For example, my wife knows this and Mary knows this. I never asked what school you went to. I asked where are you from? I was just, where are you from? Because somebody may not have gone to school, may not want to go to school. That's where you're from, because that allows me to make a connection with you other than saying something like a university. So to me, really, right when I graduated and left Florida, that's when my success in college didn't mean anything to anybody, rightfully so, and I'm glad it was like that. Again, ask Muhammad. He went to New York, and now he's doing well on Wall Street, but it took time to build that persona up, build that background up. And I said, my buddy is in his fraternity, but he's doing very well now on Wall Street. But he started from scratch, but that work ethic will show everywhere you go. The back.
You can take this in whichever terms if you want to, but can you talk a little bit about your law school experience, the lessons you learned?
Yeah, so so essentially my dad was in law school. He was one of the first 10 Black graduates of New York law, class of 74. I knew I did not want to practice law, but I always wanted to law school. For me, my focus was on constitutional design, foreign policy. So I was involved in a thing called the Indiana Center for Constitutional Democracy. Amazing, allowed me to learn about the Dalits in India, allowed me to learn about Miramar, certain things about how they build constitutions and how, when we work with other countries, how the structure of a constitution can always mirror what we have here, but it can give you the framework for a foundation of what to work with. So when people say rule of law, what that means is constitutional design and the way that a constitution works. So that was all my focus. Yeah, I had internships with the state attorney in California, San Diego. Yeah, those type of things. But for me, my favorite part was the foreign policy aspect. So I was in a journal called the Indiana Journal of Constitutional Design. And that taught me necessarily not always how to argue, but how to write to appeal to broad audiences that I may never interact with. So for those who may not be writing in a major that's writing centric, please take a writing course. That is so important because people are going to see your writing before they hear you speak. I know it, even if it's a semester, I know it's an extra few credits, but that writing is important because that can be sent everywhere. Not only on a resume, but it's how you articulate your arguments and your ideas and your beliefs. So please take a writing course because I did not, maybe one in college, but I took more in grad school and law school. So you have to be an effective writer. So what law school taught me was how to be an effective writer, but also how to think outside the box in a fashion that appeals to people overseas to understand our Constitution, but also to put it in somebody else's language that appeals to them and their ideals.
I have a question. You mentioned that there is a certain level that you weren't going to achieve while being in the UF. What is that level now for you? Like, what's the goal after everything?
My goal now is to be a good husband and a hopefully father. Because a part of that was I was always hustling, always in the grind, moving, experiences. I wanted to be the Black James Bond. Look, I lived everywhere. It was exciting. But then I realized I got to my late 30s and I said, there's more to it than that. We're not going to be on this earth forever. Both of my parents have passed. My dad died in August of 2020. I realized I needed to shift. And I realized that I did everything I wanted to do before 40. So then I got married and everything. And that's really my focus because success is going to come if you have integrity, if you have character and work ethic. But that family piece is so important. I know so many people can get so caught up in success. And then they get to 45 and 50 and say, I never slowed down to make time for what's really important. When my dad passed, I was at his bedside and he was so happy about the success of his kids. He didn't talk about being a lawyer. He didn't talk about going to Vietnam. He said, I'm proud that all of my kids went to college, went to grad school, are doing well on this earth to make it better. And that part of him is still on this earth. So now that I see my older brother, I think of my dad because he looks just like him. When I think of my mother, I see my niece who looks just like my mother, and my sister who looks just like my mother. So to me, that's so important. So I know we have high achievers here who want to do everything, but that family piece has to be in line because you're always going to get good opportunities. You're always going to get asked to work for other people, other places, other jobs, but you have to just make time for what's going to be here forever, even after you leave this earth. So that is my focus because I was on the hustle for years of trying to do everything and be everything to everybody. But I knew for me, it was important. And a part of the experiences in the Marine Corps taught me how to deal with stress. My wife will tell you, she had a cardiac arrest on June 6th. She looks good now, and she just passed out. And for me, when I saw her on the ground, I started doing CPR. Had it not been for my training in the Marine Corps, I would have flipped out. Started doing CPR, called the ambulance, they came, and they revived her after her heart not beating for almost 30 minutes. And to me, I knew that my experiences were for something and for a greater cause outside of my own. So to me, it's no longer about the professional success. It's more about protecting family and making sure my future kids have a chance to live, excel, and do well like I did.
I would just love to know some more habits or things that you do in your everyday life that help you reflect, whether it's early on in your career or now, on goals that you want to accomplish in the past or things that you're wanting to do now as well.
Hey, say that first of all, one more time.
So just some daily habits or just routines that you've gotten into that have helped with your self-reflection and overall goal.
Yeah. So daily habits. So essentially, I work out every day, whether it's walking, running, something physical. Because now with COVID happening, behind the desk all day, I work out every single I either run or bike ride. I started bike ride about 2 years ago because with my knees and COVID all the time, running outside was killing me. So the bike ride for miles because that allowed me to think. Bike ride, read biographies, those were the ways that I kind of decompressed. I like traveling, but because I did it so much, traveling would add some stress because you're traveling, you pack up and on the plane and everything. So really the physical fitness part to me was important, just to be outside. So for those who are thinking about how to decompress, whatever way that you do it, meditating, whatever it is, but you have to decompress because people will think I'm very social, but I'm kind of an introverted extrovert. Because when I go home, I'm like, I don't want to be by myself, because you're on 10 all day with everybody, interacting with everybody, but then you go home and you just want to relax. You just want to be yourself, not have perfect diction, not have everything perfectly aligned all the time. So I feel like having that home time now, in college, I had a rule. I did not really go out like that. I didn't go to clubs and parties, but I would make a cameo. Go to the event, walk around like the Club Creole parties, walk around, hey, what's up? And then I would just leave. I wouldn't say goodbye because nobody would know when I left. But oh yeah, I saw him real quick. He was at the ASU event. I saw him at a party, but I don't know when he left. So I could have been there 4 hours, could have been there 30 minutes. But for me, it was important because I need that downtime to compress. I don't want to be seen as antisocial, but also I'm a late night study. I would study at Burlington and all that till like literally 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Because for me, it's quiet, no distractions, no phone calls. And then that's why I would schedule classes maybe around 10 or 11 because I was in Thomas Hall with no AC. I was in Thomas Hall, I was in SLED. It sounds wild, but to me, it was close to everything. I was in Tressler my freshman year a bit further. My sophomore year, I was in Springs a bit further. I said, well, how can I study, maximize what I'm doing, but still look so close? So Thomas, I can walk. I was in the first floor of Thomas on the right dorm. My buddies were like, knock on the window, wake up, come on, let's go to this event. So for me, even though it had no AC, it kept me out of the room so I could stay in the library all day. So that was the best thing for me, but having that, knowing what works for you, what works for somebody else may not work for you. For those who are lost, you'll see everybody wants to do, hey, here's what I'm doing. Like that doesn't work for everybody. And for me, once I found my lane at UF and found how I can stand out and be different, that's what I did. I realized I wasn't going to have the fancy cars and the Porsches or the Jaguars on campus. It just wasn't me. I didn't have a car until my 5th year because my uncle died and my aunt gave me his car. But to me, it made me have friends. One of my best friends, he's an anchorman in Columbia, South Carolina. I met him one day because I didn't have a ride to Walmart on a Friday night. I do all my shopping on Friday nights, shopping and studying Friday night. It was quiet, the stores were empty, and I could just focus and get what I have to do and go back home and study. So whatever works for you, you have to find that lane and don't fall under peer pressure. I would tell my buddies, nope, I'm not going to a club Saturday night. I have to study. I'm not doing it on Friday night. I'll stop by and say, hey, real quick, but that's my quiet time. That's my study time. That's the time I get to focus and recharge in the long weeks of being everything to everybody.
Good time for one more question. Yeah.
So I find it interesting how you something particularly was how when you said you felt too comfortable and you go on to pursue the next thing. So I think, the worry I have is as well is, am I doing enough? Am I involving myself in the thing? And am I too comfortable with where I am right now? So my question is, how do you recognize that you're too comfortable and while also respecting boundaries and limits you have to what you're doing?
Well, I have a good question because how do you know? I have the rule of 3, maybe 4. I'll do 3 things outside of work, whether it's boards, a position, and that was always my rule. So for example, people are asking me to be on all these boards. I'm like, nope, I can't do it. I have my rule of 3. Because in college, I was on like 5 different e-boards my sophomore year. It was ridiculous. And I was a jack of all trades, master of none. So it's good to be better at one thing, and excellent one thing than to be spread thin and not doing anything. So whatever that personal rule is for you, whether it's 3 things or 4 things, you can tell friends, hey, you know my rule. I'm doing these 4 things outside of school. I'm on the HSA board. I'm on the ASU board. I'm on the cruiser board, whatever that is. Once you hit your max, it's okay. Because once you're good at something, people see that you can manage the stress, more people are going to ask you to do more and to do more, and to do more. And it's never, ever going to stop. It's just not going to stop. If people like people who are busy, who are focused, who are driven. And so you just have to find that balance. Because for me, it was finding that balance that I did not have in college. I was like, oh, let me do this. And someone's asking me to be on this board, this committee. But now that I'm in a different phase of life, I think that it's, I can say no, and I will say no. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, hey, I'm overcommitted right now. I'm already committed. And you don't even have to say what it is. I'm committed, but I appreciate you asking me to be involved with this. And once you realize that balance and what's best for you, you can't empower others if you don't empower yourself.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jamal. I want to just close by saying, first of all, really enjoying this. This was wonderful. I want to highlight just a couple of points that he made here and follow up. First, on the question of Peace Corps. UF historically is one of the top 5 providers of Peace Corps volunteers of any universities in the country. If you're interested in Peace Corps, go to the International Center. We have a program called Peace Corps Prep, which is designed specifically to help UF students navigate their way towards a Peace Corps. We've had over 1,200 UF students become Peace Corps volunteers over time. And typically at any given moment, we have between 30 and 40 recent alums who are Peace Corps volunteers. So we have a pathway there that we can help you navigate them. So that's a wonderful piece of advice there to help students think about. Second thing I want to highlight, the growth mindset, right? The constant effort to think about, well, what comes next? And sometimes what comes next is stepping back and growing, in this case, as a family man, as a partner. But it's that constant effort to think through, where am I, being self-reflective, introspective a little bit, and asking, where am I and what comes next for me in this circumstance at this moment? I thought that was really meaningful. Another point I want to mention, you didn't use this phrase. It's one I use all the time, but you spoke about it in a different way. The only definite no is the thing you don't put your name in for. The thing you don't try to do is a definite no. right? That's a guaranteed no, is if you don't step out there, if you don't step outside your comfort zone, if you don't try. But you have to be careful, and again, and not overcommit too, because it is really easy. And on student orgs, we support 6 student orgs here, but we have this conversation all the time. I review a lot of resumes for students, and they'll list 10 different student orgs that they've been on the e-board for, and I'll ask them, which one of these did you care about? And they can't answer the question because they haven't actually taken the time to think about what is the value of this experience at this moment of my engagement with it, right? So knowing what your limits are and how you can make a valuable contribution, but also bring value to yourself from those experiences. So whether it's your rule of 3 or rule of 4 or whatever. And then the last one, being present with others, right? And connecting with others. And you would ask Stephanie about what are some daily habits. I'll share one that I do that is about connecting with people. Every day, I pick one person in my network, whatever it may be. I text one person a day just to check in on them, right? It could be somebody that I haven't spoken to in 6 months or 6 years, right? But just one person a day to just pick out and just sort of say, hey, I'm going to reach out to this person today, see how they're doing. It could be a recent grad, it could be somebody else, but maintaining those personal relationships, because that level of integrity, right, that you're speaking about, that matters to people, right? And that's how you can build some, it's a simple thing, and you do it in your own way, but it connects in a lot of ways to some things that as I talk to students here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. The personal story, it must have been as a husband, man, I can't imagine that. So
Yeah, I think that one last thing, a big thing is that becoming better is knowing what you're weak at and knowing what you're good at, improving what you're weak at. I was weak at public speaking, so I took a class from Dr. Ed Kellerman, who's right, he's retired. He was probably the most popular public speaking professor at UF. My brother took a class, I took his class, and he taught us so many things about speaking, about being brief. And because I was not good at it, I said, well, if I want to become good, I need to be like him. So I took his class and just kept talking to him and learning from him. And for me, that was key, because do it when the stakes are low, when it doesn't really count in college. Because when you're a professional working for Peace Corps, working for a big corporation in New York or California or overseas, they're going to expect you to be able to articulate your arguments and what you are saying in order to progress their agenda and their cause. So I wanted to give him a shout out, because he's the one who taught for many years on the art of public speaking.
You're pretty good to begin with. I'll take a little bit. You did a fine job.
But please add me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I look forward to seeing you all in your success in the future. But think about Fulbright programs, think about Rhodes Scholar, think about going to the Harvard MPP program, the Harvard MPA program. Those are also foreign policy driven too. Just don't think about this law school or MBA route. There's so many routes you can take that people have not thought about. Harvard Kennedy School, like I just said. So expand that horizon and then bring that knowledge back home to Florida to make our state and your home better.
It looks like you have one question popped up on the screen.
okay, Dr. Ray. Brian, go ahead and unmute. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Jamal, I'm going to start the 1010th club called the Jamal Fan Club. So if anybody wants to join the faculty advisor, and Jamal, looking forward to seeing you at some point, maybe over the weekend at the game. Are you going to be in town this weekend?
No, we actually have to head back home right after this and everything with my wife, but I'll definitely let you know when I'm back in Gainesville.
Great. Well, sorry I missed you. And thanks again for inspiring these young people. Greatly appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Ray.
Thank you.